Welcome to our program on Kardec Radio. And now, here's our host, Dr. Vanessa Anceloni.
Welcome, dear listener, to Kardec Radio. We're here from our Chantilly, Virginia, United States of America studios at Kardec Radio, and we're delighted because we have here with us Barry Eaton. He's talking to us directly from Australia, which is fascinating, by the way, and he's kindly pre-recording the program with us because of the very reasons of the time differences. And we are going to talk about his latest book, No Goodbyes. No Goodbyes, Life-Changing Insights from the Other Side. It's a book in which Barry Eaton delves deeper into the mysteries of the spirit realm and life between lives and reveals how they can and do influence our current lives on Earth. Fascinating. Barry Eaton has a wide international experience in all areas of the media and entertainment industries. He is a well-known radio and TV presenter, having spent many years with the Australian Broadcasting Corporation and various commercial radio and TV stations. He produces and hosts the internet radio program RadioOutThere.com, now in its 11th year, enjoying a worldwide audience. His first book was Afterlife, Uncovering the Secrets of Life After Death, which was published in 2011. And he's just releasing this very book, No Goodbyes. Questions we may ask: what happens when we die? How does it feel like? What is the light at the end of the tunnel? Is reincarnation real? And if so, do spirits have any influence over their lives to come? Allan Kardec, as we know, in the Spirit's book, Question and Answer 918, shared with us many important insights in that regard. And it's so matching with the teachings that Barry brings to us. One of the things that Illuminated Spirit shared with Kardec and he published in the Spirit's book is on entirely spiritual worlds, they form families animated by the same sentiment, and from that they derive their spiritual happiness, etc., etc. There are so many things to know about the afterlife. There is such diversity happening there, as diverse or more than we can see here. How is it? If you're listening to us now, you can ask your question right now and we can forward it to Barry Eaton, or you can write to him directly by going to the website www.radioutthere.com, where you can contact him directly and have your questions answered. If you want to write directly to Kardec Radio, it's simple, kardecradio@gmail.com. Before we begin the program and open the line to talk to Barry Eaton, we would like to remind you that this coming October 31st and November 1st, the British Union of Spiritist Societies is organizing its 5th Medical Spiritist Congress. Physicians from Brazil and from the United Kingdom are going to get together with the public from around the world to talk about spirituality and medicine, how we can improve our health care by incorporating spirituality. Spiritism has a lot to share, a lot to help in that regard, because we know health care is in great need of transformation, as all of us, of course. But there is hope. And you can register just by going to the website www.buss.org.uk. Very simple, buss.org.uk. If you want to know more about things that are happening in Spiritism around the world, just go to the International Spiritist Council's website, intercei.com, intercei.com. Get to know of it. If you're in the United States, just go to the United States Spiritist Council website. spiritist.us, and you get to know information. There is so much happening around the world, and the tone of this program is about our very nature, immortality. We keep on living, and those who are listening to us, we have no doubt. We talk about it, it's just second nature for us, because we're spirits. When people say to me, Vanessa, sometimes I wonder if spirits exist, we often reply, well, if you doubt it, you're doubting your very existence because you're spirit. We need to think that the implications of such questions are immense. They shall be transformative in all dimensions of our lives. Let us talk about this and much more after this very beautiful message that we're now going to play for you as a way to set the tone of the program. Right after this, we're going to open the line for Barry Eaton to talk about no goodbyes, life-changing insights from the other side, and much, much more.
Life After Life by the Spirit Anderson. Not all persons are given the wisdom, but all do have the gift to testify through the love to each other in our daily experiences. In truth, our social condition, color or race, age or nationality do not prevent us from the duty to serve. We are all challenged to do good things at all times. God is love. Nobody is all good and nobody is all bad. Each of us is self-centered on a course of development to reach a higher plane of activities. God has enshrined His divine attributes within us. As one goes higher, evolution is expressed by word, equilibrium, love, and light. Let us be progressive with Jesus. How can we do this? Service first. Spiritual refinement is man's soul experience, life after life, over and over again. Our present awareness extends over an extended period of the past. The area of experience varies from man to man. Each man only exists in the place for which he has fitted himself. Nobody can evade that which is in his own consciousness. Actually, there is no death. As we live in our earthly body, our life continues in the beyond, according to our thought. Therefore, we come back to the physical world through rebirth, to conquer perfection, till we get complete command of our impulses and functions. Marvel not that I said unto thee, Ye must be born again. Jesus, John chapter 3, verse 7. This message is from the book Among Brothers of Other Lands. It was received by the medium Valdo Vieira while traveling in New York City with the medium Chico Javier on July 7, 1965.
We're back, dear listener, and we're back to talk about no goodbyes, the afterlife, reincarnation, life-changing insights from the other side, written by Barry Eaton. Thank you so much, Barry, for being with us at Kardec Radio today.
It is my pleasure, Vanessa. And as a person who has delved into Spiritism and Allan Kardec, and also John of God, I presume you know John of God, the healer in Brazil, because I've been working in association with the Casa in Brazil for quite a few years now. I very much understand where you're all coming from.
That's wonderful. And by the way, we are honored to have you here. You really make this so much easier with your experience as well, Barry. And the first thing that came to my mind when I came across your book and learning a little bit more about you was like, how did you get to this thinking of the afterlife and then writing about it? Please tell us a little bit about your history on this.
Well, that's something I've always believed in, I guess, that life just doesn't end at so-called death. But I never really got actively involved in it until about 25 years ago when I was going through a divorce and I needed a whole change of life. I was doing a radio program in those days in Sydney, Australia, where listeners called in. I had guests all through the week and whatever. And one of the guests was an astrologer. And I said to him one day, look, I've decided to do your course next year. And he nearly fell off the chair. He said, what, you're going to do astrology? And I said, yes, I am. I don't know where that came from, but I'm going to. So I did. And I got my diploma in astrology. And then from then on, I opened up spiritually and started to work also to do clairvoyant work. At this stage, I was still working on radio. And also I was running a public relations company. So quite a busy time as well as being on radio several days a week. So it developed from there. And I then met a lovely lady after my divorce had gone through. A couple of years later, I met a wonderful lady who turned out to be my real soulmate. And we were only together for about 4 years when, unfortunately, she passed over. And she contacted me via a medium from the other side and said that we could continue. We were given permission from the Council of Elders, I guess you'd call them, on the other side, that we could continue our communications afterwards. And I did. We first did it through a little bit of automatic typewriting, and then my own medium abilities opened up from there. I was helped. My spirit guides and helpers helped me to develop, and of course they've been working with me ever since. And so I kept on getting these messages from my partner, Judy, my late partner, saying to me, you've got to write a book about all this, Barry. Come on, you've got to write a book. And I was so busy at the time doing many things. I was also lecturing in journalism at university at that stage, just to add a few more things into the pot. And I kept getting these messages, even one from my good friend Bob Murray, a medium up in Canada, saying, hey, Barry, I got Judy here. She's saying, when are you going to write this book? So I thought, all right, it's about time I wrote this book. So I started the research on it. By now I was doing another radio program. Judy and I had started a radio program from home back in 1997, which we called Celestial Power. But then after she passed, we changed the name. My son came up with the idea of Out There. So we called it Radio Out There. And that's basically it. I've moved in the whole area of mediumship, and I've developed my abilities, shall we say, there, because we've all got abilities. We can all communicate with people on the other side. It's just a matter of whether we do it directly or through a medium or whatever, but they are there and they want to speak to us, as you've probably found yourself, Vanessa.
Exactly. And Barry, how does it feel for you when you embrace this new pathway?
It felt as if that was my real purpose in life, and I now know that it is. That, yes, all my years in radio and television, and I started off in the theatre, and I've written travel features and many different magazine stories and whatever, a couple of documentary movies over the years. But all of this has been a build-up to what I really regard as my ultimate purpose, and that is to be able to help people understand that life continues. There is no such thing as death, the way that it's been portrayed through so many belief systems for so many thousands of years. We don't die. The body dies, but we are an immortal soul energy, and this energy lives and is immortal. And that is the basic message that I wanted to get out there, to help people understand that not only do we not die, but also, neither does anybody else, of course, and we are never separated from our loved ones for more than maybe a few years, because we all do ultimately meet up again in the life between lives situation.
In this new pathway that you embraced, You've heard many stories, and would you say that when people get informed or become aware that life goes on and they have some form of validation on it, do you feel that their lives change as well? Do you have stories on it?
Oh, very much so. I mean, it starts off with so many people who have what we call NDEs, near-death experiences, and they may go through a tunnel, they may have other experiences where they just leave the body. And when they come back again, it's been proved, psychologists and researchers have proved this over many years now, that this is a transformational experience. Nobody ever comes back and just gets on with their life as if nothing happened. Near-death experiences are something that we go through purely to wake us up, in many cases, as to the purpose of our life. We maybe have been operating in a kind of sleep state, but once that transformational process of realization, whether it's through a near-death experience or whether it's just through your own opening up for whatever reason, maybe it's because of the passing of somebody else, maybe it's because of other events in your life, but once these events happen, you're never the same again, and you don't want to be the same again because you realize that there is a lot more to life than just getting up in the morning, going off to work, chasing the mortgage, looking after the kids, and all the stress and strain of life. There's a lot more to it than that. We're here for a purpose, and once we can uncover that purpose and realize a little bit more about ourselves and the whole universe, then our lives can be not only meaningful, but heading in the right direction, because that's why we're here. We're not here just to go through a whole lot of problems in life and then finally die. No. We are here as an eternal soul that is doing a human experience to grow as a soul. And that is our prime purpose. But along the way, we have so many experiences, we make a lot of mistakes, because that's part of life. If you don't make mistakes, you don't learn. But the trick is not to make the same mistakes too many times. In fact, if you can only make it once and then learn and grow from that, that is really, really being in the right direction.
It's so interesting what you're saying, because in your book, No Goodbyes, there are two particular chapters that I'd like to bring up to a further discussion in that regard. You're talking about challenges in life, and these two chapters, 6 and 7, challenges to life paths and the dangers of negativity. Can you tell us a little bit about it? Because you're talking about the current times, perspective, and how spiritual awareness can change everything in that regard. Can you share a little bit about what you discuss in those chapters of the book?
Well, first of all, challenges to life paths. We all come here with a purpose. And when we do come, we don't remember what's gone on in the past. Sometimes children will remember their past lives. They'll remember all sorts of things about soul families and many different things. But that seems to fade from about 6 or 7 years of age for those children that do remember these things. But we have built in to our subconscious, if you like, our direction in life, what we've come here to do. And that is so important for us. And there's so much, we can get on to destiny and things a little bit later on, but this life purpose, it may be going to take us in directions where we become well known or have a large influence in life, or our life purpose may just take us into being a wonderful family person and helping many people, having children, supporting them, encouraging them, letting them grow. But the challenges to our life paths come from being a part of the earth population, I guess. And there's always going to be challenges there. One of the big challenges is negativity, because the power of negativity is very, very strong. And I was surprised. I communicate with a group of spirits on the other side, and they communicate through a man called John Dingwall, who was a well-known Australian producer and screenwriter in films. And I knew John a little bit before he passed over, but then we've come in contact through a medium and a trance medium where John comes through directly, and he is the spokesman, I call him my spoke spirit actually, for this whole group. I found out later. I thought at first it was just John, and I thought, wow, he's learned a lot since he's been back on the other side. Or maybe he's a very advanced spirit. But he then told me that he is the mouthpiece, if you like, for a group of about 95 or so spirits at various levels in the afterlife, and they communicate through him. And I was told by my main guide, who I just know as M, that it was like me being a news anchor, a newsreader, where I'm bringing the information that has been accumulated and written and presented to me by a whole group of journalists and researchers and management and all these sort of people, but I'm the one that brings the word out to the people through the microphone, through the radio, or through the TV camera. And John is exactly the same. So he's got all these spirits speaking through him. And when they told me about the power of negativity, I was quite amazed, really, because I, like a lot of people, I guess, think that, well, once we get back into the afterlife, it's a very positive place and very supportive, and we're going to have a wonderful, loving time. Well, it's not completely, because the power of negativity is brought back into the afterlife by so many people. And there is this constant struggle, I guess, to overcome negativity, not only here on earth, but also in the afterlife. And a lot of these spirits who return and they sort of group together, still being very negative, and they're helped, because that's the whole purpose of being back in the afterlife, in between lives, is to learn about the mistakes we've made, but also prepare ourselves for our next incarnation. And they are helped as much as possible, but quite often, being so negative, they then are reincarnated, bringing back some of that negativity with them. So it's very important that we start to work on this negativity in our lives, and whether it's being surrounded by negative people or negative events, we need to work through that as much as possible. Now, we can't be positive all the time. That's, I guess, almost impossible. Because you'd be a kind of a Pollyanna figure. We're always going to have good times, we're going to have bad times, because life is a balance like that. But to erase as much negativity as you can, particularly as far as your beliefs and having an open mind and not being skeptical about the afterlife, is just so important, because there are so many skeptics out there that just believe that when we die, that's it. We just go into some kind of black pit. And I always think, isn't that a terrible thing? Why would anybody want to defend that position of saying, no, you people going to the afterlife, that's a whole lot of nonsense. We don't believe in that. We believe in nothing. Well, that's the ultimate negativity, isn't it? We believe in nothing. We believe that life is just here. You do have as much fun as you can, and if you hurt people along the way, well, it doesn't really matter, because at the end of it, you're going to disappear anyway. Yes. And that, as anybody who studies in these areas or develop or goes inside themselves, we realize that is the ultimate negative situation. We are not here to hurt people. We're here to work and be part of the whole community and to help and spread love and be that. We're going to make mistakes, and it's not going to be easy all the time, but that is part of our ultimate purpose.
That's interesting, because when you're saying about purpose and the need to reincarnate, in your book you mentioned this, and it reminds me of an excerpt in the Spirit's book by Kardec, when we learn the following: you have chosen the kinds of trials, the details or consequences of the position you have chosen, and frequently of your own actions. So you also talk about free will. You talk about planning, but you also talk about free will in your book.
Yeah.
Correct?
Yes, I do. Very much so. Because my guides on the other side, my spirit contacts, tell me that life is a combination. Yes, we have our life plan set out for us, and we've agreed to this life plan. And along the way, there are what we call destiny points. I guess that's one way of putting it. And it's kind of like a plot point in a movie where it reaches a certain position and then something transformational happens, an opportunity, a mistake, an event that changes things. Now, this happens to us at various times during our life, And these destiny points are there, and they're pre-programmed. We've agreed to them before we even come back as part of this life that we have agreed to, the contract of this lifetime. Now, when we reach these destiny points, this is when our free will comes in. We can choose to either accept an opportunity or reject an opportunity. It's up to us. We can decide with our free will just exactly what's going to happen. Now, this opportunity may be the opportunity to meet somebody. There may be a new job. It may be a new relationship. It may be a new direction in life. Or it could be a real challenge wrapped up as an opportunity, because a challenge can then lead to other things. In fact, in Chinese, the word crisis is the same as for opportunity. It's just that there's a different inflection, different kind of pronunciation, I guess, if you like, because they believe that you need to go through a crisis to find the opportunity. And this, I think, really describes what happens to us in life. When we reach these destiny points, it's up to us as to where we go. And sometimes we can take a positive route, other times it can be a negative route. But we then have to take responsibility for our actions. Because so many people say, oh, it wasn't my fault. No, all those things happen, But when we boil it down, yes, we had something to do with it. We co-created, or we agreed to, or we accepted a situation. So we had a part in it. And we have to accept what we have done when we reach these destiny points, and at any other time in life as well, not only at destiny points. So that's, in a nutshell, I guess, Vanessa, how we sort of work through our lives, a series of destiny points, a series of things that we have agreed to, particularly the major ones, we've agreed to as part of the preparation for this life, where we're helped to understand what we will be going through.
I find it so interesting, Barry, that when people talk about free will, especially in science, for example, there's still this, it's like an enigma when we talk about consciousness and free will. It's still very puzzling because of the materialistic idea that we are just a byproduct of our brains. But it's so paradoxical that the very scientists that believe in that paradigm are the very ones that would agree that if you made a mistake, it's your fault, which by principle shouldn't be looked at that way if we're just a byproduct of the brain. It's like your broken machine. How can you be blamed for it? Your machine is broken. So you committed a crime just because your machine is broken. So why you're going to jail? Because the machine is broken. So remember, one neuroscientist, Michael Gazzaniga, he was bringing that discussion to a new field of neurocriminology, and he's saying we're not very coherent in our very paradigm. And when I read in this book, in your book, No Goodbyes, the very chapter about free will, I think it would certainly challenge that materialistic mindset that is not very coherent in itself, because it says it believes in something, but then everything else in life is founded in a non-materialistic paradigm. So I think the chapter reminds me of that very point of controversy that exists out there, in our world, for the people who are skeptical, as you mentioned before. Barry, if we would need to give a very short break, when we come back, we would like to ask you more about the very part of your chapters that start talking about healing past wounds, because we have many listeners who have been sending us questions that they would like us to address regarding how to heal past wounds. And I find in this very chapter of your book, answers that can be very consoling to the public. After the break, Barry Eaton is going to share more with us.
We will return to our program after these messages. Want to learn more about the ins and outs of mediumship? The book, In the Realms of Mediumship, by the spirit doctor Andre Luis through the medium Chico Xavier, analyzes the various aspects of mediumistic communication and mediumship. He also praises the efforts of mediums who are faithful to the spiritual mandate they received before they reincarnated, warning them about the risks of badly practiced exchanges between the two worlds. Buy your copy today at www.ediceiofamerica.com.
The Spiritist Magazine is a trimestral, digital periodical that publishes the latest news on the Spiritist thought and the movement in the USA and worldwide at www.spiritistmagazine.com.
Spread the word. Kardec Radio, to learn more about Spiritism.
Study Spiritism online at eSpiritism. eSpiritism is an online tool to promote the study and practice of Spiritism while contributing to the preparation of Spiritist practitioners. For full access to courses, go to www.e-spiritism.org.
If you missed out on any previous shows, no worries. We have an on-demand section of all previous shows and interviews. Go to our website at www.kardecradio.com.
Emmanuel's Novels. The reputable mentor Emmanuel wrote a 5-book series of Spiritist novels that can truly transform your life. Starting with 2,000 years ago, Emmanuel delights our minds with the true account of characters that are so similar to each of us. Discover yourself in Emmanuel's novels and live better. Buy your copy today at www.ediceiofamerica.com. And now we return to our program.
So, dear listener, we're back talking to Barry Eaton, learning so much. It feels so good to learn in such an easy way these teachings that are becoming ever more universal. So, Barry, before the break, you were sharing about free will, planning of a reincarnation, etc. So, we know we're still in this growth process on the earth. Kardec, in the Spirit's book, mentions to us that sometimes, and this is just for reference to the listeners, question 260 of the Spirit's book. When he asks the spirits, why would a spirit want to be among wrongdoers? The answer is, he has to be sent in the environment in which he can experience its requested trial. To this end, it must find an analogous situation. For example, in order to struggle against the instinct of thievery, it must dwell among thieves, as an example. But we know many people go through experiences that can become traumatic, and they need healing as well, or they bring some traumas from previous lives as well. What have you discovered in your experience regarding the afterlife and this exchange with the spiritual realm regarding the possibility of healing ourselves, the spirit?
Well, as I said before, Vanessa, the whole purpose of each human experience, which we call life, is to grow as a soul and raise our vibration, because the afterlife, heaven, paradise, whatever label you want to put on it, is in a different dimension of reality, and that dimension vibrates at a much higher rate than the earth plane. So that as we develop and grow as a soul and learn over many incarnations, our vibratory rate increases as well, so that when we go back to the afterlife, then we are able to advance into higher realms. Just as on earth there are many, many, many different levels. Here we look at it from a socio-economic point, but in the world of the afterlife, the world of spirit, it's regarded where you are is up to you. It's the vibration of your soul, the development, the growth, the place that you have reached through your own efforts, your own learning, your own development. And that's why we come here. We come here to make the mistakes. We come here with quite often not only a purpose, but also some of the karma that we've brought back from previous lives. Maybe the previous life that we had, maybe it was a lifetime, several lifetimes ago. But we do come back with certain lessons that we may not have learned, or we may be coming back with other karmic lessons to help others around us, to help members of our soul family, or we have a couple of different levels of soul family from what I believe, from what I understand. We have our immediate soul family, a very, very close group of souls that we tend to travel with from lifetime to lifetime, and then we meet them and they're around us at various times, not only in this life, but of course in the afterlife. But then we have an extended soul family. And with this extended soul family, it may well be that you've elected or it's been suggested that you come back and work together. And one of those may be your greatest enemy in life, somebody that you think hates you or somebody who's hurt you, not necessarily physically, but somebody who may have let you down or fired you at work or whatever. But it's been part of the experience that you have needed to undergo in this lifetime to be able to grow. So these mistakes and these lessons that we are learning are, it's not so much that they're all pre-programmed, but they are there and they will play themselves out. It's like a giant script. And when you're training in the theatre, you go through this something called improvisation, and there will be various scenes that you will improvise to learn to be able to stand up there, express yourself, go with the flow, think on your feet, and move. Now, improvisation is a wonderful way of learning, not only for people in theatre, but people could do this in business. They could, and they do quite often. They'll improvise certain scenarios that may or may not happen, maybe with a client or when they're selling something or whatever. And I think you work in the area of psychology, and I think improvisation probably works very well there in many cases as well. So it's a matter of working as much as we possibly can to have as many experiences as we can in each lifetime so that we do grow. And then those people around us, they're not only supporting us, but we're part of their support system as well. So this is where the concept of we are all one comes into play. And it may only be somebody, maybe an old lady or an old gentleman that you help across the street, but that is still part of your development and your purpose in life, to be able to be at one with that person, and it might only be for 1 minute out of all of those years in your life. But your lives have touched in some way, and that helps them, and it can help you as well.
That's beautiful. And allow me to share that in this very chapter 41 of the book No Goodbyes you're just releasing, I love when you say that Judy described that some of these traumatic experiences as soul scars that had been there for a long time. And then you mentioned at one point, any emotional problems that we brush aside or bury deeply in our lives usually stay with us as an impression on our spirit energy and need to be addressed and healed in the afterlife. Every chapter in your book, but this chapter is specifically in what we're talking about is fascinating. And you talk about your very story about a previous life, and as an example about the need of time and to heal these soul scars. It's just so beautiful, and it brings to my mind the discussion that you have in the last part of your book, which is so important. I've talked to somebody yesterday. She was mentioning about her son who is a drug addict for the time being, has been in drug addiction, and how difficult that is. But she doesn't understand about previous lives or the dynamics of spiritual influences in that regard. And I know in your book you mention about addictions, you talk about accident, suicide, euthanasia, and coma. What would you like to share with the listener in regards to these health issues and the spiritual realm in general?
Well, I think probably the important thing is to realize that what we do as a spirit is use our body for our human experiences, but we need to respect that body. Because, for instance, addiction and drugs is a subject that created a lot of information that was sent to me. And I must say at this stage, Vanessa, that all the information that I have been given and I've written about, it's my research and my contacts with the afterlife. I'm not saying to everybody, you have to believe everything I've written, but what I'm writing is to help people, to open up, to share my research and my findings with people to help them. But once... I've totally gone off my track here now. It's early in the morning over here.
Something, Barry. Let me mention something. When you said that it's your research, it's interesting because Kardec himself mentions about the fact that we need several different mediums and people's experiences to validate the experiences. So you're right. We need this unity to verify the commonalities. And when I see several passages, I haven't done a research point by point, but everything I read this far from your account with the Spiritist teachings and the books that I've been reading from Kardec, Chico Xavier psychography, everything matches so well. So I would say it's quite universal, everything you're laying out in your book.
Well, I mean, there is only one truth, isn't there, really? There's variations of that because everybody leads their own unique life. And when we go back to the afterlife, it's our unique journey as well. I mean, if you talk to 7.5 billion people on the planet, you'll find everybody's got their own story, their own development, their own purpose, everything. But getting back to what we were talking about before, and I apologize for going off the track, but when we do make decisions in life, and major decisions like to take drugs, for instance, and this can be not only illegal drugs, illegal substances, but also a cocktail of pharmaceutical drugs that some people are on. This has an impact on our body. Now, this, again, makes an imprint on our spirit, from what I've been told. And when we do pass over, when we do go back to the afterlife, the spirit, which is the housing for the soul, takes back this imprint with us. And this has to be worked on. This has to be helped on the other side. We have to go through healing. We have to go through all sorts of development and help to be able to get rid of this imprint. Now, sometimes if this is so deep, we then bring a lot of this back with us into our next life because it hasn't been resolved. They haven't even been able to resolve it for us or help us to resolve it in the afterlife itself. So we have to take this responsibility. So whether it's drugs or whether it's other addictions or whether it's sometimes, drugs can lead across into mental health conditions and whatever. All of these things can put so much stress on the spirit itself. And we have to be aware of these things. This negativity we talked about earlier on as well. It's not something that you just sort of shed the body, go back over there, and, everything's all wonderful, welcome to paradise, and all your cares are now behind you. No, we have to take responsibility, and we have to work through this. We're helped. We're given tremendous help, but we have a life review when we get back over the other side. And we work with what has been told to me as being a council of elders, which may be 1, 2, 3 spirits. It may be a larger group of spirits. But they've been working with us, and they were the ones that helped us into our current lifestyle. And when we go back and we look back at the life we've just led, and we decide whether or not those mistakes we've made, those journeys we've had, those directions, decisions, etc., whether they all were allied to our life purpose, or whether or not we went so far off track, and that can be with drugs and with many other aberrations of behavior, shall we say. And we have to then work through that when we're back in the afterlife, in that life between life phase. We still continue to learn. We have healing, we have life review, we continue to learn and grow, and we also have nice rest and recreation when we're back in the afterlife situation as well. But it is ultimately preparation for your return in the next life. So things go on, and we do bring things back from past lives that have not been resolved, because nothing can be, well, the soul just cannot reach a state of perfect development where it doesn't need to come back to earth until we have resolved all of these past issues, whether it's past lives or whether it's karmic issues or just what. So we have to take responsibility, and I can't emphasize enough that we have to take responsibility for our thoughts, our deeds, our actions, and everything in our life. It's not somebody else's fault. We have to take responsibility for it.
That's so beautiful. And you're talking about responsibility on page 255 of your book about suicide. I love when you mentioned that the group you were working in raised this question about the growing number of people that were taking their lives. And allow me just to read this short excerpt.
Yeah.
A beautiful question that was raised in the group. So another big question being addressed in the spirit world is what can be done about the highest suicide rate in history. The group emphasized that the forces that pressure many people to contemplate suicide have to be faced and conquered by all of us. These destructive influences range from medication, alcohol, and recreational drugs to many negative pressures that complicate our daily lives. There are even dark energies around us that interfere and create havoc. The good spirits that surround us are there to help and encourage, but ultimately it is up to the free will of the individual.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. And it's very empowering. I find it very empowering because it gives back to the person her own power over her own life. It's like, okay, we are all surrounded by these influences, but we can overcome it and we're not alone. That's the bottom line, isn't it?
Oh, very definitely. We're not alone, but sometimes we do feel cut off. We feel very lonely, but we are not alone. It's not as if we're sort of got spirits bumping into us all day and all night, but they are there for us when we need them. They've got their own life to lead in the afterlife as well. But when we do need help, and we do have our guides, we have spirit helpers that may or may not be our soul family. For instance, I've got this wonderful guide called M, and he is a master guide, and he is just there. I was told that he just was asked to work with me on my books. Nothing else. He doesn't work with me in any other aspect of my life because I have other guides that do that. And those words that you just read out, quite often words like that, as I was sitting writing, knowing what I wanted to say, the words just sort of flowed. Mm-hmm. My fingers worked across the keyboard. It sounds a bit weird, but he was writing through me, and some of these wonderful expressions that he came out with, I just thought, wow, where did that come from? And I know that that spirits do work through us like this, but we've got to give them permission. We've got to give ourselves permission to be able to work with these people, because they are people. They are spirits. A lot of them are advanced spirits, depending on what we're doing. But they are there and they're giving us their help and love and energy. But we have to listen. We have to give ourselves the opportunity, because so often life is so full of stress and strain and worry and concern, and I've got to get up and get the kids to school, I've got to get breakfast, and oh my God, I've got that meeting, and I'm so stressed. By the time I come home, all I want to do is have dinner and collapse in front of the TV or open a bottle of wine or a beer or whatever. Well, we've got to give ourselves a break. We've got to have quiet time. Call it meditation, call it whatever you like, but quiet time every now and then to escape. If possible, to escape into nature. If you've got a lovely area in which you live where you can go somewhere quiet, on a beach or in a mountain or out in a field or even in a park, just quietly, or even in your own room if you're in a very, very busy city, just turn off the TV, take the phone off the hook, put your computers and everything off, have some quiet time, play some nice quiet music, and allow yourself to get into that settled stage where not only can you listen for spiritual advice, but you can listen to yourself. And so often the two are exactly the same, because that information, that intuition, which just means wisdom listening from within, that intuition is there to help you, but you've got to give it the opportunity. As I've often said, it's like going to a Super Bowl final, and there's 100,000 screaming fans all around you, and you're trying to have a very quiet, intimate conversation on your cell phone. You can't do it. You really cannot. You can't even listen, let alone think about what you're trying to say or do. So what have you got to do? You've got to get out, find somewhere quiet where you can hear what the other person's saying and even think about what you're saying yourself. Now, that's what life is all about. So get out of that Super Bowl situation in your life. Have your quiet times. And it doesn't have to be hours at a time. It might only be 10 minutes here and there. But do it, and you'll be surprised at the results.
Oh, wow. It feels just better just to listen to the possibility of doing that. Being quiet, being because it's stimulation, you're talking about constant stimulation, so just turning that off a little bit. And talking about turning off the busyness of life. There is one particular chapter in this that I found quite surprising, and it's almost never discussed in the spiritual circles. It's about prison reform.
Ah, yes, big one.
It's so interesting because we talk about so many topics when we talk about spirituality, but this is a very rare topic discussed in the spiritual circles. In the Heaven and Hell book by Allan Kardec, we have now the audio format of 67 cases of spirits who came and talked through mediums at Kardec's time, published 150 years ago of that book. And there is one chapter that talks about repentant criminals. They discarnated and then they came back through mediums to talk about their experiences. This is one of the few times that I've seen people talking, spirituality, criminals, etc. Now, you brought this chapter about prison reform. Quite surprising because it's rarely discussed. And we would like to know more about what did you learn with the spirits regarding that very part of life on the earth?
Well, it was quite surprising, Vanessa, because it wasn't a topic that I was pursuing myself. But in one of the many sessions I had with John through the trance medium, pardon me, John brought the subject up and said that they, in spirit, wanted to raise this whole area of prison reform. And I said, oh, okay, well, let's talk about this then. And they were saying how the dark energies that are around us all, they control places like prisons, mental institutions and other places like this, and obviously areas where there are intense drug activity. The dark spirits really control these areas, dark energies. And as such, we need to be able to do something about prison reform, because it's all very well saying, yes, society, we need to get rid of these people, get them out of sight, out of mind. We don't care what happens to them, as long as we don't have to have anything to do with them anymore. That's the convenience of modern life, but it has been for a long, long time. But we need to be able to work with these people. And, for instance, in India, where there is, as you know, more than 1 billion people there, they have got a program in prisons where they use meditation. And apparently the instance of recidivism and also the rehabilitation is extremely, not only encouraging, but very, very fruitful. So these sort of programs are working. They're working to help people. But as my spirit people said on the other side, in prisons, even light workers cannot get in because the dark entities are in control. So it is very, very hard. So they can't get in. We need to do something about this. And as I mentioned, that is just one area to help people in prison, particularly maybe those going in for the first time, because they can end up just being completely engulfed by this whole area of negativity. So they were very outspoken, and without giving not giving away, but without going into it completely, as I have in the book, that is the basic reason that I talked about that. But also one of the other areas that nobody ever talks about is euthanasia, and you did briefly mention that before. And that is something that caught me by surprise as well, because I guess we all think, well, if we have a cat or a dog or an animal friend and they're in dreadful pain, yes, we'll take them to the vet and we'll euthanize them. So why wouldn't we do the same thing for people? Why should we see people in dreadful pain? Well, I was an open mind about that, I must admit, until they told me from the world of spirit that it is often in those very last days or months that you are there in this dreadful state just before you leave the body. This is when some of life's greatest lessons can be learned, and maybe this is the culmination of those lessons that you've learned in this lifetime, and you need to have this experience. So to have that experience taken away from you is not only tantamount to a kind of suicide, but you're abrogating your contract, your life contract, where you have agreed to come for so many years, so many months, so many days, and have these experiences. And this is the rounding off period. So euthanasia is very, very much frowned upon. In not only that, it's discouraged, it's, well, they're putting out warnings from the afterlife, let's put it that way.
Yes, it's beautiful what you said, because people don't quite understand the importance of those last few moments of our reincarnation before we are full time, I would say, back in the spiritual life. But that's the importance of books like yours, Barry, to really clarify, because I find out, talking to people around, that often people make decisions in life by not knowing, because they don't know better. For example, when people decide how, the end of life decisions, many of them later, the decisions they had to take regarding their loved ones, they come to our spiritual centers. They're like, I decided this, but now I'm feeling conflicted. Have I done it right or wrong? I'm feeling guilty. 10 years have gone by and they're still doubting if they made the right decision, because they were not sure about the dynamics of life. And when I read your book, they bring, as you say, life-changing insights, because they are talking about the reality of life as it is. And I think the listeners who are connected to us right now, they probably have several questions they would like to have answered. And I just want to reassure you, dear listener, that whatever question you're asking through the Blog Talk Radio chat room right now, live in our live program, or the questions you're sending to us at kardecradio.com in our contact form, or kardecradio@gmail.com, we will be forwarding to Barry Eaton if that's the case, or you can go straight to his website, radioutthere.com, and send your very questions or comments directly to Barry Eaton. Barry, it's such a delight to be with you, learning, and it's so easy to listen from you about these experiences, the insights. We don't want to let you go, but time, as an experienced broadcaster, you know better than me that time really is our master here, and we would love to hear from you just for today, your last comments, a message that you could kindly share to all the listeners who will be in touch with us in this very interview. What would you like to share?
Well, the main thing is, Vanessa, that we are a spiritual energy that lives on. There is no such thing as death. The body dies, we go back, we are reconnected with our soul family. We are an ongoing aspect of life, of the great source of God, whatever name you wish to use there. But life continues, and the books that I have written, Afterlife and also No Goodbyes, are there to help people not only understand this, but to cope with the grief. And of course, grief, as I've been told, is a part of preparing our own journey into the afterlife as well. So all I want to say to everybody is really, even though you may feel as if you've lost somebody in your life, you really haven't, because, as I said in this book, and the title was given to me by Spirit, is There Are No Goodbyes.
Yes, there are no goodbyes. That's why we're not going to say goodbye to you either, Barry. Because we hope we can have you back at Kardec Radio another time, because
I'd love to.
we enjoyed very much. We learned a lot, and we hope to have you back more often to share the experiences and the teachings you have been in touch. So thank you again and again for being with us today, for your book, and for being so kind in being with us at Kardec Radio. Thank you.
My pleasure, Vanessa. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Kardec Radio, broadcasting live every Saturday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Email us and share your comments at www.kardecradio.com. Until next time, we wish you many blessings.